Time to reset the counter. Good thing it never goes terribly high, but yes, Sony had another massive PSN outage over this past weekend. I know, right? Like, it seems to happen on a bi-yearly basis. Like, that might even be generous at this point in time, but holy crap, man. Like, why can't they shore this stuff up? Like, it's crazy. It's like, you guys aren't putting out any games, so you thought that, at least your infrastructure, you'd be able to properly manage that, but no, of course not. But it's wild, because this one right here, it comes at an awfully inopportune time, as everybody is starting to scrutinize the business practices of Sony and starting to branch out, and we're seeing the dilapidated corpse of console gaming and what it used to be and what it is right now, and how other platforms and other gaming mediums are definitely taking off in the wake. And so Sony, you're kind of looking stupid now. Okay, as Sony experiences PSN outage over the weekend, company cites operational issues as a cause despite users' fear of a data breach, which I would imagine we'll probably hear about in, a few months' time when, oopsie days. Remember the last time when the PSN went out? There was a massive data breach. But don't worry, guys, we'll just give you a few games and you'll all just forget about all of your important data being, farmed out to these third-party scam sites. Sony's PlayStation Network has finally restored full functionality after hours-long outage, and left millions of players unable to connect over the weekend. And thanks to, basically a soft always online gimmick. You're old enough to remember 2013 when the PS4 and the Xbox One were first announced, and how Sony, rightfully so, roasted Microsoft on having an always online connection needed. Strange how when the PSN goes down, you can't use a vast majority of the services or even just the games that you have bought digitally. Very strange how that all ends up coming full circle. And the disruption, yes, which began late Friday and lasted through much of Saturday, prevented users from accessing online multiplayer games, purchasing content, and even playing some single-player titles due to a digital verification requirement, which is big gay. Sony's Interactive Entertainment, multiple Sonys, confirmed on Sunday that services were back online, offering a brief apology and a small consolation for PlayStation Plus subscribers, an automatic 5-day extension to their membership. Oh, see, that's so nice. However, the company is yet to provide a detailed explanation of what causes the disruption, probably because they don't even fully understand it at this point. Network services were fully recovered from an operational issue. Sony Interactive Entertainment, words are hard, said Sunday, "We apologize for the inconvenience and thank the community for their patience. All PlayStation Plus members will automatically receive an additional 5 days of service." Great! The outage, which affected players worldwide, including the US, UK, and Australia, left many unable to access their full game libraries or even launch titles they had previously downloaded. Players looked forward to their usual Friday night gaming sessions were particularly irritated. "Friday night is my game night with a couple of buddies. Thanks for ruining this." One user posted on X, and another vented their frustration over digital ownership, stating, "I can't play any offline games I own because my PS5 can't verify I own it." Yep. As the outage stretched into Saturday, speculation began running wild. Some feared it could be another security breach akin to the infamous, that was back in 2011. Oh my god, I remember that. Yeah, the PSN hack, which compromised over 77 million accounts. That incident, one of the worst cybersecurity disasters in history, saw the network shut down for nearly a month between April and May. Yup. Hackers stole personal data, including credit card details, leaving many players wary of trusting Sony's security again, which is, another big reason when Sony decides that they want to start branching out onto other platforms, right? Because, they've basically, they've won the console wars. Let's keep it a buck. Xbox is, just trying to make everything an Xbox, from a toaster to a refrigerator to a cat box at this point, thinking that Game Pass is the future, not realizing that, subscriptions have stagnated and, everything that you put on the platform just doesn't end up recouping losses, so they'll have to deal with that problem in the future. But Sony, it's like you've consecutively won every generation you guys have been a part of. Eventually, I'd have to take a specific look whether or not the original PlayStation 1 against the N64, but I think given how every console started to shift towards disc-based properties, I would have to say it had a big enough influence, okay? And then, PS2 is the best-selling console of all time, even though the Switch, the original Switch, is within 10 million consoles, so it's within striking distance before Nintendo ceases production on it. But still, at this point in time, the PS2 PS2 is the best-selling console of all time. The PS3 ended up rebounding off of the terrible launch and ended up outselling the 360, winning that generation. The PS4 won, yeah, and then the PS5, like, it's going to end up walking through to the end because Xbox just gave up. Even though the Nintendo Switch, it's just kind of off doing its own thing because Nintendo, is it mobile? Is it a console system? Is it part of the 8th generation or the 9th generation? Like, what are we doing over here? Nintendo's kind of its own beast, and you just treat it as such. But with Sony releasing their games on different platforms, and especially their big experiment over on PC, there was a lot of people, and especially at the beginning of last year when HellDivers 2 was really popping off, and they just decided, hey guys, you know what would make this even better? Linking your PSN account in order to continue to playing the game that you guys have enjoyed. What happened? Why are you pushing back on this? Because of these exact reasons. Because, just think about this. At the height of HellDivers 2, when they were getting, mid 6 digits, okay, 400, 600,000 players over their launch weekend. And then, PSN goes down, and then all of a sudden, people on Steam, people on PC cannot access a game because they cannot access a third-party account that has nothing to do with anything. That's why people were so enraged when they tried to do that, when they tried to backdoor all of these extracurricular accounts. Because when you're playing on PC, okay, depending on the different publisher or developer that makes the game, sometimes, if you buy it on Steam, they'll have their own launcher. Like Ubisoft, back when they made games worth playing, you'd have to have, it was whatever you play at the time. I don't know, what is it now, Uconnect or something like that, or EA. Same thing applies with them. They were off of Steam for a long time, and they had EA Origin. I don't know what it's called at this point in time, but eventually everybody comes back home. But Sony has been releasing some of their old back catalog, and now some of their newer stuff is coming around day and date on the platform. But then they tried to force the PSN account integration. First thing that came out, the first one that I can remember specifically was Ghost of Tsushima, okay? But they're like, no, that's just for the multiplayer. Don't worry about it if you just want to play the single player. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to link your PSN account. That's totally fine. And then God of War Ragnarok came out, and I was like, well, actually, yeah, that has no multiplayer at all whatsoever. But yeah, you're going to have to link your account. But they ended up walking all of that stuff back, and I touched on that. I'm pretty sure I touched on that in one of the previous videos. But yeah, they really started to incentivize you with releasing different skins. It was for Spider-Man 2 that just recently came out, and nobody played that game. Ooh, boy, that was a catastrophic failure for a game that cost $365 million. I guess they were probably hoping for a second life about 15 months after release, but nope, that did not happen at all whatsoever. That game came and went, and it's dead. But they didn't force the PSN integration on that one. Instead, if you opted into it, you could get a couple of early access, or you could get a couple of early unlocks to a couple of goofy skins for Peter Parker and for Miles Morales. So yeah, you could get a free Spider-Man suit and a free Miles Morales suit if you're so inclined. But even PC Gamer, after this recent breach, is siding with gamers. What happened? The PlayStation Network outage proves PC gamers were right to resist the mandatory sign-in requirement. Wow, this is shocking. This is shocking to come from PC Gamer of all outlets. You have a mainstream games journalism shill site coming out and saying, actually, gamers are right for once. Review bombing campaigns are often motivated by half-baked culture war controversies about trans characters, queer developers, or supposed mafias of liberal writing consultants behind or bending multi-million-dollar companies to their will. It's so nice of them to, I try to give them credit where credit's due, and then you immediately poison the well with some stupid shit, which, yeah, you can go ahead and say all of that stuff, but I know you're making vague references to things, but can you point to anything specifically? Can you say, oh yeah, review bomb, Dragon Age of Veilguard was review bombed because of Tosh. No, it was review bombed because it was really bad, and you guys tried to big up the game as being groundbreaking for its basic bitch character creation. And people hated on the Veilguard because of a trans director, a trans director who was so good at their job that they got fired after the game flopped spectacularly and is now looking to fuck up Baldur's Gate 4 potentially. That's another wild story, which we'll get to in due time as well. But yeah, all of this review bombing stuff, I mean, clearly, it's always about superfluous elements. It couldn't actually be of anything of substance, which I would argue Veilguard was. Was it even review bombed? Because it wasn't review bombed by the critics, getting 8s, 9s, and perfect 10s, right? PC Gamer was even on the lower end of that spectrum with an 8 out of 10. It's 78 or something like that, because they use a 100-point system because that's a big think. But the game was really bad. Same as Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. But was it just bad because of Sweet Baby Inc? Whatever, man. You'll try to cherry pick your examples when in reality, the games that get review bombed are just trash. Last May, though, we saw a great example of a review bomb's utility in pushing back on a genuine consumer grievance. HellDivers 2 PlayStation Network sign-in requirement. To be fair to Sony and Arrowhead, it was communicated at the start of the launch. Yeah, it was hidden in the terms of service. Yeah, we'll eventually require this, they just didn't give a specific date on it until they just sprung it on everybody, and then yeah, the pushback was immediate, and it frankly killed the momentum of the game. But yes, it was communicated at the start of the that such a requirement was meant to be implemented eventually, and at the time, the stakes didn't seem all that high. No, everybody knew. It's like, oh, great. So you're going to try to put in a security feature that revolves around Sony. We know how porous their security is. We don't want this stuff, okay? We bought it on a non-Sony platform for a reason, because we don't want to have to deal with their crap. And, oh, you're going to try to force us to do this in order to play a game that we're already playing? No thanks. Go to hell. Any players pointed out to the galling exclusion of gamers in the countless, in countries that can access Steam, but not the PSN as a reason to resist the imposition. No, it's just forcing us to sign up for shit that we don't want. That's another big problem, okay? It's Sony just trying to parasitize another platform and just suck it of its life because its own platform is, well, it's stagnating. I won't say failing, because sales of the PS5 are fine. They're quite good in some aspects, but it's a flaccid platform. But Sony has largely surrendered its PSN and PC ambitions, while still weirdly excluding those countries in HellDivers 2 and its other releases, and players in the global north don't seem too bothered these days. Let's call a spade a spade. Much of the backlash was because Sony's requirement was annoying, exactly, and that the supposed player protection justifications felt insulting when the move was clearly meant to force more users onto Sony's PSN ecosystem, exactly, for them to tout, hey, look at how many people we have active, look at how many active players we have on PSN, it's so great, and they're just going to try to astroturf a rival to Steam. You're out of your mind. But this weekend we saw firsthand when the issue goes much further than that. PC gamers' capacity for acting annoying. Now, when we get annoyed, helped us dodge a bullet. Oh, now all of a sudden you want to associate with gamers. Oh, I despise you. Sony's PSN was completely knocked out for 24 hours, and the company refused to offer an explanation for what happened. If Sony had held firm to the PSN sign-in for HellDivers 2, that would have been just as borked as PC as it was on console. That if Sony had retained its login requirements for single-player games, you could effectively play God of War Ragnarok offline after creating or logging onto the PSN, unless you opted for a handy mod. Yeah, but just like installing a PS5 disk drive, PSN outage would have prevented first-time setup for something that simply doesn't require an internet connection. Exactly. You couldn't play your single-player games on PC because another platform's online system wasn't working. This is what people were saying. This is stupid. We don't want another layer of quote-unquote protection, which is just another security liability, and especially from the most porous company in the business. And this is why, even for all of its follies, Steam is still the best that's out there. And they continue to knock it out the park. Valve bans all Steam games that force players to watch advertisements. So, unlike Sony, just trying to drag along an old archaic model, Steam, on the other hand, is getting out ahead of other things, because we know ballooning budgets that are out there for these AAA game releases, okay? And the fact that something is going to have to give in the very near future, because there can only be so many more flops in 2025, because 2024 was so abysmal for the Western AAA industry, that some changes are going to have to be made. Now, they're going to start making good games? Are they going to immediately find a bunch of competent developers? Absolutely not, okay? For as much as Hollywood, film and TV could potentially pivot in the next couple of years, I mean, there are some people that are willing to couch their own personal political beliefs. When it comes to game development, I mean, there are some people that are just ready to go down with the ship, a vast majority of them, in fact, and a lot of those development cycles are quite extended and protracted, where a TV series or a movie could have a 2 to 3 year development cycle. You take a look at a lot of major AAA games, you're looking at 5, 6, 7 years in development. So yeah, we're still going to be dealing with this crap for a couple of years. That was all gestated in 2020 and 2021 in the afterglow of the summer of loves. And a lot of the stuff getting greenlit right now is still being made by a lot of those activists because gaming has been perverted and poisoned for years. Remember, Gamergate started in 2014, and that was just simply exposing the rot that was already still in the industry. But I say all that to say this: as those games continue to fail en masse, hell, we're going to be seeing one here in the near future with Avowed, with Obsidian, a first-party Xbox studio that's not going to do anything, and it's, for all intents and purposes, setting itself up to be Dragon Age the Veilguard for 2025, could spell the end for a once great studio. Oh well, sucks to suck, I guess. Thanks for the memories. But for other games that are going to have 8, 9-digit budgets, they're going to have to start getting crafty. Their monetization practices, as nefarious as they are right now, you don't think that they're trying to find different ways to integrate ads, product placement that's in there, or hell, just even full stop right before a big cinematic, they give you the little, just like on YouTube when you aren't signed into premium or don't have an ad blocker or something like that, the little, okay, 5 seconds away from an ad makes you sit through an ad in order to continue to play your game. You think that I'm being hyperbolic, but that stuff is very much being discussed right now. But Steam, thank God, they're getting out ahead of this stuff. They're cutting this stuff off right here at the outset, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Steam, as long as Gaben is around, is going to be the premier place to play. And it's sad to look at gaming in general, the overall health of the industry. It all hangs in the balance, and it all hangs on the medical records of a nearly 70-year-old obese man. Hopefully things change before anything bad happens to Gabe, because the moment that happens is the moment that shit gets really fucking weird. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Cotswell. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.